Alright, that was an awesome game. Whew. Alright. Wonder what the fans think of this game. Sonic Mania review.
Sonic Mania scored 8.7 out of 10 on IGN.com.
Really? Wow, I would have expected worse from IGN. Huh. It's actually quite positive. Actually, it's very, very, very positive. Like, critical acclaim. Huh. Neat. Well, I can definitely say for sure, Sonic Mania deserves all of its praise. But that doesn't mean it's flawless. Okay, let me make one thing clear, guys. I in no way dislike this game. I personally think it's amazing. Solid gameplay, fun zones, an awesome soundtrack, and even well thought out gimmicks. It's just there are some moments that does slow it down from being a perfect game, at least for me. For those who live under a rock, Sonic Mania is a recreation of the old classic side-scroll Sonic games, and while the Sonic team has been working on Sonic Forces, Sonic Mania was developed by Christian Whitehead, Headcanon, and Pagoda West Games. What these three have in common is that they've been a huge part of the Sonic fan gaming community. Christian Whitehead created a fan game called Retro Sonic back in 2008 with the use of the Retro engine, custom built by Whitehead himself, which would later be used for Sonic Mania. And after Retro Sonic, he worked with Sega on enhanced iOS ports of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 after his successful recreation of Sonic CD, all built from the ground up as opposed to being used by an emulator. And then Whitehead later became the lead programmer for Sonic Mania. Now the art, audio, level design, and additional programming was provided by the independent studios Pagoda West Games and Headcanon. The programmer from Headcanon, Simon Tomley, created various fan games and ROM hacks, including a Game Boy Advance port of the original Sonic the Hedgehog game as a response to the poorly done Sonic Genesis. Tomley even helped program the Sonic 1 and 2 iOS ports with Whitehead. And T. Lobes, who is a part of the team for Pagoda West Games, composed the score for Sonic Mania and is known for composing remixes of video game music on his YouTube channel. So yeah, while the Sonic team has been working on Sonic Forces, Sega had fans develop Sonic Mania, who were chosen for their work on Sonic fan games. That has got to be a dream come true. Right, Nintendo? Oh, sorry, I was just trying to make a point. No need to get triggered. Odyssey is awesome. Upon release, Sonic Mania got critical acclaim and has been seen as a return to form after some poorly received Sonic games in the 21st century. It stays faithful to the early Sonic games while still being its own unique thing, and in the end, it's definitely a game worth getting. But that doesn't mean it comes without its flaws, and I'm here to look at them today. Why? Because no one else has the blue balls to do so.
How dare you, you monster! How dare you say Sonic Mania is bad? You are the reason why this fanbase is so broken!
What, by making criticism?
No! By showing everybody that the 2D Sonic games are just as bad as the 3D Sonic games!
Oh god, you're one of those people.
What of the... what? See? You hate 2D Sonic games!
What? No, I don't.
Yes, you do! You just prefer your Sonic Adventure 3 and to jack off to the edginess of Shadow and Infinite!
Okay, shut the hell up. Seriously? Can't we just enjoy a Sonic game without being so prejudiced on what dimension he's represented in?
It's not a prejudice, it is a fact! Sonic was amazing until they made those adventure games, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure that mouth has really aged well.
Okay, look. I get it. Whether if it's nostalgia or you're following your favorite online personality who says Sonic was only good in the 2D, well, I can assure you, I love Sonic in both dimensions, 2D and 3D, and I love it based on whether the game is good, not by how he looks. And Sonic Mania, regardless of the flaws I'm about to mention, is a really great game, and I highly recommend it to anyone, fans and first-timers alike.
Or you're just saying that to avoid raising the dislike bar?
Okay, you know what? I didn't want to waste my money on this, but...
Hey, I'm talking to you, you Forces Defense Squad! You don't ignore me!
Well, there goes my money to a firewall that should hopefully be uncrackable in the next 300 days. So, without further interrupting fanboys, let's talk about the top 7 worst things in Sonic Mania.
Lights, camera, action.
Number 7. Making the game mostly reimagined zones. If you played Sonic Mania, you can probably agree that this is the least of the game's problems. Hell, you could argue that it's hardly a problem at all. In the final game, there's a total of 12 zones, and only 4 of them are original, that being Studiopolis, Press Garden, Mirage Saloon, and Titanic Monarch. Yeah, 8 of these zones are all from past Sonic games. The first 2, Green Hill and Chemical Plant, were also reimagined previously in Sonic Generations. And when the news came out that Green Hill Zone was being reimagined again, the fans were mixed because we didn't want Sega to rehash what we love, as rightfully so, we want something original. And as some fans have feared, it turns out the majority of the zones are reimagined zones. However, despite our disapproval towards these reimagined zones, that dislike quickly faded away upon release like we never had those skepticisms. Yes, the majority of the game is reimagined zones, but even with that said, the zones themselves are still a lot of fun, and they even add in some new elements that weren't in the original versions, such as turn this goob into a trampoline and chemical plant and so on. And the boss fights at the end, well, some based on past Sonic games, are completely original and unique. So in the end, I only consider this the least worst thing in the game because the reimagined zones are a ton of fun, and so are the newer ones. The reason I put this on the list is because it would have been nice if the majority of the zones were original rather than the minority. But even with that said, Sonic Mania still provides a fresh experience even with these reimagined zones. So yeah, hardly worth complaining about, it just would have been nice to have more originality. Number 6. If you were to ask anyone what their least favorite zone is, the responses vary. Some say Mirage Saloon Act 1, Press Garden, or Lava Reef Zone. Personally, my least favorites are Flying Battery, Titanic Monarch, and Metallic Madness. And when it comes to Metallic Madness, which is my second least favorite zone in the game, there are unfortunately some annoyances that I think are important to address. Now, while some people have told me that this zone is actually better than the original from Sonic CD, well, Sonic CD just happens to be the one Sonic game I still have not played, so I can't compare to the original from experience. However, as a level itself, it's just not as interesting as the previous zones. The colors range from gray to green to purple, and that's pretty much it, which honestly makes the overall level a little too bland in my opinion. But that's not the main problem I have with this zone. The main problem I have is that it can be risky for people who have epileptic seizures. Now, I am not one to get seizures. I can be in a room with strobe lights and have fun no problem. However, I have a sibling who has seizures occasionally, and I happen to notice when an event like flashing lights can trigger an episode. In the first act, it's not so bad. But there's a gimmick where you have Sonic go into the bottom layer of the level, creating the illusion that he's at a distance. However, looking at Sonic in the background can be a little hard on the eyes. It's not like Sonic Boom Fire and Ice where the camera follows the player wherever the character goes. The camera remains in position, which makes looking at the background really obnoxious. I mean, it functions well gameplay-wise, but it's not pleasant to look at. But when we go to Act 2, and before I continue to show you guys this, I should warn anyone who gets seizures very easily that this may be hard to look at. So you can skip to this point of the video, or close your eyes until you hear a sound effect. Ready? 3, 2, 1, and... What the hell? Now, this doesn't bother me or give me any headaches or anything, but it does kind of concern me that this became passable in the final game. Especially since I wouldn't want my sibling playing this game just to go into an episode because of these rotating medals. Now, I have spoken to a few people about this, and they all have confirmed that this can be a possible trigger for episodes. And before you guys commenting down below to correct me, yes, I am aware that the rotated medals are also in Sonic CD as well. Now, I'm usually not the type of person who looks for sensibilities, except this is a mental condition I am talking about that can trigger people into a state of unconsciousness. Now, don't get me wrong, Sonic is not really the type of game you would go for people who have seizures, since the majority of the concept is a blue hedgehog who can run fast. Except some people who do have seizures can handle imagery of Sonic running fast and even be able to play these games no problem. However, moments like this and Sonic going to the bottom layer honestly are very questionable in my opinion. I put it low on the list since it doesn't affect me or a lot of other people, but I think this needed to be addressed because if Sega is looking to get a fresh audience, this is definitely not the type of imagery that should be in a video game. Take it for what it's worth. If it's not a big deal for you, great. It's not for me, but because someone close to me has seizures, I'm more aware of this sort of thing. And I hope in a possible Sonic Mania 2, this problem is considered so people who have seizures can play the game no problem. Number 5. Just like the various zones, there's also mixed responses on what everyone's least favorite boss is, and they seem to range from the 2 Press Garden bosses, the second act boss in Hydro City, the Upper Caterpillar in Act 1 of Mirage Saloon, Mega Octus in Act 2 of Lavoil Ocean, both Titanic Monarch bosses, and the horrendous Mean Bean Machine boss fight. No, I'm just kidding, that boss fight was awesome. And while I don't agree with these bosses being bad, there were some that were a pain in the ass. However, the one boss that no one seems to fret about is Heavy Gunner. Now on the one hand, yes, there are much difficult bosses ahead, but difficulty is not the main issue here as much as sloppy game design is the problem, and Heavy Gunner for some reason seems to be overlooked. But maybe for a good reason, as I might reevaluate my opinion on this. The problem I have with this boss is the inconsistent momentum. If Sonic is not running fast enough, you are more than guaranteed to land on the missile you don't want to jump on. The goal is to knock the blue missile back at the robots by either jumping on it or spinning into them. Sounds easy in mind, but the execution is pretty sloppy. Drop dashing can be tedious to perform at times, and even then, landing on it is easy when it's not crossing over another missile. But this is not the only problem. Just look at this! You have a colorful background mixed with various robots and sprites. You can easily lose your way with all of these sprites on screen. It's just too cluttered to even see what you're doing. And unlike most bosses where you can pick up your reins after you lose them, you are 99% guaranteed to lose your reins as you are always on the run, and you won't be able to pick up any unless you succeed to destroy a robot. Now when I first faced up against Heavy Gunner, I complained about him a lot. However, I put him low on the list because, honestly, I really only have a problem with this boss when I play as Sonic, and I honestly don't know why. I thought it had to do with Sonic's momentum and how long it takes for him to build up speed. However, after comparing the speed and momentum side by side with Tails and Knuckles, there doesn't seem to be much of a difference, so that fact is false. My best guess is probably because most of the designs are blue, and when you have Tails with you, you can easily lose your way landing on the right missile. And everyone I talk to seems to have no problem with Heavy Gunner. And I will admit, the more times I play it, it's not as bad as I make it out to be. This is by no means the hardest boss fight. In fact, it's actually pretty easy and I can get through it without dying. But unlike these other bosses that people have complained about, I feel this one needed more balance to make it a little bit more functional. But at the same time, I might consider changing my opinion on this in the near future. And if I had to choose any other boss fights who are possibly worse, it would probably be between Mega Octus or the Phantom King, who are worse by difficulty and the lack of being able to pick up reins when you lose them. Well, whatever the case, my opinion on Heavy Gunner is definitely unpopular, and might go away as fast as I am able to beat him now. Number 4. So you have an amazing game with some flaws and mostly fun gimmicks that don't take away from the speed and platforming that we love in a Sonic game. How can we end this with a smile on everyone's face and raise the tension to make us realize how far we've come? By playing through what many consider to be the worst zone in Sonic Mania, Titanic Monarch. Now, okay, opinions do differ on what the worst zone is, but it seems Titanic Monarch is the biggest least favorite among fans, and yeah, mine too. As much as I found Metallic Madness bland, it wasn't a boring level to get through, and while Titanic Monarch isn't necessarily boring, it just feels overall disappointing. I mean, this is the 4th original zone in the game, and the 3 previous ones were awesome! One of my top 5 favorites, in fact. But when we get to this zone, it just doesn't satisfy as a final zone. So, what are the problems? Well, the problems are mostly encountered on your first playthrough, but even then, there's still many that exist when you replay the level again. The plasma orbs are used as a way to magnetically attract Sonic because of his fur, I guess, as you can get to certain heights or travel through the level with them in, quite honestly, an obnoxious way. The plasma orbs are by no means bad, they just become a chore when you have to go through a lot of them to get through the level. Yes, it does have speed and platforming, but it's not as fun as it should be. And there's various moments where sometimes if you fail, it doesn't feel like your fault. I mean, okay, the spikes, yeah, those were my fault, but this section in Act 2, that is completely ridiculous, especially since I died there 3 times in a row. And when you get to Act 2 where you see the stained glass windows of the hard-boiled heavies, you have to go through 4 different paths and complete all of them in order to unlock the portal to fight Act 2's boss fight. This sounds fine by concept, but when you're playing through this level again, it's kind of an annoying chore. I know I'm sounding too harsh on it, but it's something you have to experience for yourself to know what I'm talking about. And if you played through this the first time, chances are you got a time over before you could get to the Act 2 boss fight. Now, ironically, I managed to get to the boss before the timer was up, as I actually got the time over in Act 1. But once you go through it again, you should be able to beat this level in a manageable amount of time. 7 minutes is about the estimate. But that's not all. The boss fights. Oh my god, the boss fights. While not as sloppy as Heavy Gunner, the first act lacked any indication on where you're supposed to hit it, and if your response is these mini orb bots, you would be wrong. It's actually the eye you're supposed to hit, which barely stands out because it's too dark to indicate, yeah, Zelda the shit out of this. On top of that, it's hard to hit the eye without taking damage. Thankfully, the second phase of this boss is pretty easy to get through and is really not that much of a problem. And the Act 2 boss can be a major pain in the ass as collected rains is very rare, attacking Robotnik is hard during the first half, and it's almost impossible to dodge the illusions of Heavy Shinobi and Heavy Magician, even when you know how they function. And the worst part about all this is when you face up against Heavy Kane with all 7 Chaos Emeralds, and you know what? I think I might save this point for later since it's technically not a part of Titanic Monarch, so I'll return back to the Egg Reverie boss later in this countdown. Now, if you're one of those people who had no problems going through Titanic Monarch, good on you. If this is honestly one of your favorite zones, awesome, I wish I was more forgiving. I mean, this is by no means a bad zone, it's still fun when it's not a pain, and going through it again, while a chore, can still be entertaining as it was intended to be. But as a final zone and an original one at that, I think we deserved better. And I think a good chunk of people can agree on this, as many found it to be their least favorite zone. And sadly, it is mine. It was just honestly too much of a chore for me. It might go down with the ship, but at least we had an original zone to begin with. Alright, so this next part might piss some of you off, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Personally, I did not like the... Wait, let me guess.
Oh, Nitsa, you are just pulling whatever out of your ass. You are just looking for attention and just looking for ways to stab fans in the back.
What the fuck? Wait, what the hell?
Hello, Nitsa Gamer. You and I need to have a talk. I see you're making your 3rd top 7 Sonic countdown. Talking about the worst things in Sonic Mania, I see. A critically acclaimed game, considered the best since the Genesis games by many, and yet it doesn't get enough credit for what it deserves.
Okay, what do you want? You want me to talk about the good things then?
I wasn't asking for you to. If you don't want me to stab you like this obnoxious f*** over here, I suggest you finish your countdown.
Wait, what?
Finish it, and then we'll talk. Let the world know that even a game like Mania cannot compare to what made Sonic great in the first place.
So, you hated Sonic Mania? Okay. That just happened. Next number, I guess. Number 30. Three. Damn it. I love the special stages in this game. Were they a pain in the ass at times? Of course, but I love a good challenge. While the opinions on the special stages from the classic games differ, I haven't heard anyone who says, "Oh man, these stages are the worst thing ever. I could have been playing Rise of Lyric right about now." However, not only do we have special stages, but we also get bonus stages. In Sonic Mania, if you have over 25 rings before hitting a star post, you can enter in the bonus stages, which are none other than the Blue Sphere stages from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The purpose of these stages in the original was to gain 7 Chaos Emeralds. In Sonic Mania, they are the bane of my existence. And I'm sorry if you love these stages, but I just don't. They are by no means awful per se, it's just too dated in my opinion. In Sonic Mania, you have a total of 32 Blue Sphere stages, in which you have to collect all Blue Spheres to get a silver medal, or all Reigns before the last Blue Sphere to get a gold medal. However, if you've never played these stages before, you are going to have a hard time completing them. Now, I have thankfully collected a couple of gold medals and more than half of the silver medals during the run of my Let's Play, so it's not like it's impossible for me. However, these Blue Sphere stages aren't necessarily hard because it's a challenge. They are hard because they are frickin' annoying to complete. I mean, for crying out loud, you have Sonic running at the edge of checkerboard squares. Tell me this is not nauseating when Sonic is running fast like this. And a good chunk of the time, you feel like a game over is not your fault. Either because of an inconvenience, how fast Sonic runs, how little time you have to react to turning, and most of the times you turn too late and suddenly it becomes more of a chore than an actual fun stage to get through. I mean, I give it credit that it gives me a challenge and it raises the tension as I go, but I just never found these bonus stages fun. On top of that, you have no time to practice or memorize one stage because, unlike the special stages, the game proceeds you onto the next stage, which is really bad when you have little time to play video games. I don't know, but it kinda boggles my mind on why such dated gameplay would be recreated when the normal gameplay is mostly timeless. I mean, say what you want that the classic games haven't aged well, most of it is timeless and can hold up nowadays. Or at least the sequels. Honestly, the first game didn't age well. However, these Blue Sphere stages, while good and probably groundbreaking at its time, just feels more like we're playing a passport of an arcade game rather than a timeless Sonic game. And if your response is, "But Nitsa, it's a classic and that automatically makes it good," just because it's a classic does not mean it's good. I may love Zelda 2, but that doesn't mean I have to like going through Death Mountain. I mean, I wasn't a fan of the original back in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but at least you only had to collect the Blue Spheres to get a Chaos Emerald, and for the most part, they weren't as tedious as the stages in Mania. Now, am I honestly saying these Blue Sphere stages have zero value to exist? No, of course not. On a rare occasion, they can be fun. And when you do get the medals, at least they are rewarding. And if you completed half of these stages, you can use the debug mode to grind out these stages if you just want to get them done and over. Wait, I thought I collected a silver medal. Wait, didn't I just collect? Are you kidding me? I can't use debug mode to farm out the Blue Sphere stages? What the fuck? Well, you can at least collect medals on a clear file, so... Green Hill again, I guess. Yay. In the end, I just couldn't enjoy the Blue Sphere stages as much as a lot of other people had. And I know I'm not alone on this opinion. And if you loved it, Awesome. If these stages were the answers you were looking for to find a purpose in life, super! I wish I was rich and didn't have to work, then I could be spending more time playing video games. But seeing how only 5% completed these stages and only 2% have gotten all gold medals within a 25% that have beaten this game, I think it's safe to say only the hardcore classic fans are in this percentage. And all I can say to you guys is, enjoy what you love, while I take my time to no way. Number 2. Originally this point was going to be number 1, but after consideration I decided to swap the top 2 points. And number 2 is going to be a compilation of flaws as opposed to one problem as a whole. The unfair moments. You know, those moments where you take damage or lose a life or some inconvenience happens and most of the times it doesn't feel like your fault. Now, I'm not referring to losing or stuff that can be avoided by natural senses. I mean the moments where you fail because of some sort of bug, poor level design, or a lack of indication. And the thing is, there's no solid answer for this point. This point will vary among different players, meaning there could be unfair moments that I never came across that you have, or you guys never had these problems that I had. So I will list most of what I remember, and keep in mind the moments have to be unfair, not difficult. So hard bosses or glitches with benefits don't count. I've already mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. This crush and death moment, and when you're too low on this pole to avoid those spikes, and the heavy shinobi and magician illusions are nearly impossible to avoid taking damage. Although, one trick I've recently learned is that you can avoid shinobi's attacks by standing in the middle as opposed to the sides of the area. Heavy magician on the other hand is pure luck. This happened to me once off recording, but when I try to grab this orb of rains during the 4th special stage, the camera gets locked in a spinning position as I kept moving. This will essentially guarantee a game over, as there's no way to see where you're going on the map.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?
Now, the one softlock I'm sure all of you are aware of is when you hold right after Robotnik loses the Mean Bean Machine game, which prevents Sonic from going upwards, therefore making you stuck in this area, forcing you to restart the act. However, interestingly enough, I actually had this happen to me during my Let's Play, but I managed to get out with a few jumps. However, one other softlock that happened to me, which I didn't get on recording, is that I somehow had the camera lock into position for the boss fight. However, Sonic didn't show up here, and the boss fight itself didn't start. I don't know why this happened or how I can replicate it again, but needless to say, it's pretty bad when you have 2 softlocks for the same boss fight, and a pretty awesome one at that. Oh yeah, this one is a classic. When you reach these blocks in Chemical Plant Act 1, these blocks will unrealistically crush you for some stupid reason, resulting in an instant death. It happened to me 2 times in a row when I did my Let's Play. Now, when I looked this up online, apparently some people said Chemical Plant has a lot of moments like this. Thankfully, I never came across another crush and death moment, but yeah, some people had a hard time with this zone. And it's not just with these blocks or the softlocks during the Mean Bean Machine boss fight. But I can't speak for all those people, as this moment alone was really the only crush and death moment I had in this zone. And as far as I know, the latest patch has not fixed this. Oh my god. One of the reasons Flying Battery took so long during my Let's Play is because of this very poor level design where it's extremely easy to die. Once you reach a second area that looks like this in Act 2, I heavily suggest going upwards by flying up there, or if you have Sonic, use an electric shield to get up here. That way you can not only get a special stage rain right away, but you can avoid the area below the ship, because if you go down there, you will have to go through this area that caused a montage of unfair deaths for me. When you reach this area and you try to attack the main battery that operates these other batteries, you will not be able to grab onto the pole, resulting in an instant death if you don't make it to the fan below. This frustrated me so much that Flying Battery became my least favorite zone for a while. However, if you ever do end up down here, I would suggest not attacking any batteries and just go through the area so you don't have an unfair game over. Like I did. Twice. Okay, as much as I give flying battery crap for that one area, the Egg Reverie boss fight takes the cake, as this made me rage so hard during part 12 of my Let's Play, which is where I was supposed to end Titanic Monarch with a good ending, but instead it just made me feel terrible. Now, in order to get to the Egg Reverie boss, you must have all 7 Chaos Emeralds as Sonic. Once you have that, you must fight the Phantom King and Dr. Robotnik. Now, this boss fight is pretty awesome, not gonna lie, but it's also one of the hardest, if not the hardest boss fight in the entire game. It's very easy to lose whenever the Phantom King is up, and when you do get a game over, you don't repeat the Egg Reverie boss fight all over again. Oh, no. Instead, you have to complete all of Titanic Monarch all over again. What the f***? It took me 3 game overs and 4 playthroughs of Titanic Monarch to finally beat the Egg Reverie boss fight and get the good ending. Maybe that's why Titanic Monarch is on this countdown. No, it's still the worst zone, all things considered. Now, what makes this the biggest unfair moment in my opinion is that in Sonic & Knuckles, if you beat the Death Egg Zone with all 7 Chaos Emeralds as Sonic, you fight up against Robotnik in the Doomsday Zone. And when you get a game over here, you have to repeat all of Death Egg all over. Actually, no, you go straight to the Doomsday Zone without having to repeat all of Death Egg. What the f***, Christian? What is this game's excuse? So there you go, those were the unfair moments that I came across. And I'm pretty sure there are plenty of moments that I left out, likely because I never experienced them myself. But the reason why this is so high on the list and could have possibly been number 1 is because these moments can really take the fun out of an overall amazing game. The good strongly outweighs the bad, yes, but little moments like this can strive people from giving the game a 10 out of 10. And I hope these flaws are considered whenever there's a future project like Sonic Mania again. Number 1. While the console ports for Sonic Mania were released on August 15th, the PC version was delayed for 2 weeks for optimization purposes. In compensation for those who pre-ordered the PC version, they received a free copy of the original Sonic the Hedgehog on Steam. And if you were using the internet around the time the PC version was finally released, you know where this point is leading to. The use of Denuvo. Now, I was debating whether or not to include this, as it's more of a problem outside of the game itself, and it's only a problem for PC users. And since I only played Sonic Mania on the PS4, I didn't have to deal with Denuvo personally. But considering the controversy and refunds it has caused, I think it's enough to make it worse than the unfair moments. For those who don't know, Denuvo is a DRM which is used as an anti-tamper technology to prevent piracy. Denuvo has said to last up to 300 days without a game being cracked. But unfortunately for them, in recent years, some games like Resident Evil 7 have been cracked in 5 days, and Total War Warhammer 2 has been cracked 8 hours after its release. However, DRMs have always sparked controversy among the gaming community. One of the biggest problems is that people claim Denuvo is constantly encrypting and decrypting itself so it's impossible to crack, causing storage data to be used up on many users' SSDs. However, Denuvo has claimed this to be false. But there's also complaints that Denuvo causes performance issues, making certain games unplayable because of the constant frame rate drops. This has proven to be true, as Rime had the DRM removed so the game can run as intended. Now, Sonic Mania on the other hand only requires a 2GB RAM computer at the minimum to run the game. So what's the problem if it has a DRM? Well, the problem is that within the first day, nobody could play the game unless they were online, which, rightfully so, angered a lot of users who have no internet at home. So much so that not only were people making negative reviews on the Steam page, but even Aaron Weber, the social media manager, encouraged people to message Sega about the problems Denuvo is causing them. Sega has since then stated that not only was there supposed to be an info that says the game contains a DRM, which wasn't stated on the page at the time, but that the game was supposed to be playable offline and only has this problem because of a bug. So thankfully, after one day, people have been able to play Sonic Mania offline. However, this did not conclude the controversy, as people refused to play the PC port just because it has Denuvo. While the reviews are mostly in the positives, there's over thousands of negative reviews, and it all seems to point towards the DRM, while stating that the game itself is a masterpiece. And even with the game being playable offline, some users have still been unable to play the game because their antivirus software prevents it. And while games like Rime, Hitman, and Titanfall 2 have removed Denuvo, Sega is still keeping it intact with Mania, despite it already being cracked 1 week later. Needless to say, these people have the right to be pissed. And to be honest, and I know I'm gonna piss some of you off, but hear me out, I personally don't think Sega deserves all the blame for this controversy. In my opinion, I think this protest, while a good reason to exist, is very selfish to give the game a negative review. I mean, the game is high in the positive, so why would you make people think that this game is not worth their time when you claim this game to be worth anyone's time? And while I think the people had the right to be pissed about the online play only, which has since then been fixed, I don't really see a reason to bitch and moan if you can still run the game. I know some people can't, but for those who do, why would you make Denuvo the main reason to not recommend this game? Yes, I understand the protest, and I'm not saying Sega made a good decision, but Sega themselves have every right to prevent their games from being pirated. And seeing how much heart and passion the developers have put into this game, it doesn't deserve to be pirated. On top of that, it hasn't prevented the modding community from being able to create unique mods for this game. Yeah, there were mods being released before the game was cracked, so it's not like our freedom of changing Sonic sprites are taken away. The DRM just prevents people from being able to pirate the game. And I've heard many people, friends included, who had zero problems running the game, as well as running mods. So in the end, I think the complaints are going too far when it comes to making negative reviews, but at the same time, the protest does have a reason to exist, as it can make future games unplayable if companies keep going for DRMs like this. So I'm not choosing sides here. I think both Sega and the fans are in the wrong, but both have the right. And it sparked enough controversy to make people skeptical about Sega's decisions, as well as encourage people to refund the game and write negative reviews. And I think it's worthy to be the worst thing in Sonic Mania, as this does damage the game financially. But hey, look at the bright side. Just like the failures of 06 and Rise of Lyric, at least Sega will learn from their mistake and never add Denuvo again to Sonic for son of a bitch! Whew, so there you go, that was my top 7 worst things in Sonic Mania, and I gotta say, I'm actually quite impressed. For an idea that is quite ambitious, Sonic Mania really does exceed expectations for a game made by fans. It takes aspects that we love from the classic games and expands upon them into a full, complete Sonic game that, yeah, has flaws, but flaws that I can't necessarily say are bad. Personally, I really love this game. It's probably up there in my top 5 favorite Sonic games of all time. Now, do any of these flaws I mentioned means I hate them? No. In fact, there's a reason why this is called a worst things countdown and not a bad things countdown. The majority of what I mentioned aren't really bad points. They're just aspects that make the game less appealing to me. I may not like the Blue Sphere stages, but I'll still do them. I may dislike certain aspects of Titanic Monarch, but I can still have fun going through the zone. And the unfair moments that do happen can be worked around or learned from. In the end, I greatly enjoyed this game as a whole. And what I find so fascinating is how the opinions differ among fans. I mean, while there's plenty of people who find this to be a perfect 10 out of 10 game, there are people that adore these Blue Sphere stages, find Titanic Monarch to be their favorite zone, and even ask the question, what's a Denuvo? And you know what? I'm so glad for that, because I've heard so many people who say they didn't like Lava Reef, but honestly, I thought it was a great zone. And Act 2 was gorgeous to look at. I even heard some people say they didn't like Press Garden, but to be honest, I think it's my favorite zone in the entire game. I seem to find that people are never at mutual agreements, and the enjoyment is very subjective. Whenever there's an aspect someone doesn't like, there's always one person out there who somehow finds this to be the best part of the game. And you know what? I think these worst points I mentioned works towards the game's advantage. Or more or less the Denuvo controversy, but it works towards the game's advantage because I believe the creators want to implement a giant collection of gimmicks, zones, and originality that everyone can enjoy as a whole. And even if one idea is considered the worst, there's someone who's bound to think, oh no, I love this idea. I mean, if you ever at one point disagreed with any of the worst points I mentioned, that's great, and I wouldn't encourage you to change your opinion on what you love, because in the end, we have a game made by fans, for fans, and there's something in this game everyone is going to enjoy. They went 1,000,000% on something that should have just been a rehashed game into a game that not only Sonic fans can enjoy, but a game that can introduce newcomers to an amazing franchise that, yeah, has its problems, but has a lot of heart and passion that only a true Sonic fan can understand. And for that, these flaws I mentioned actually makes me appreciate the game even more. Sonic Mania may have flaws, but it has the heart of Sonic that we can all be proud of. And there you go, that was my third top 7 Sonic countdown. If you haven't played this game yourself, go get it, and all I can say is... Oh shit, I forgot you were still here.
Well done, It's a Gamer. You did well.
I did?
From those worst points to that ending speech, it's music to my ears. And I'm glad you can see the passion that many people can be so blind to.
Okay, so you do like the game.
Yes.
So why kill that guy from earlier? I mean, he's bound to have a sore throat for a week.
Because he's the extreme that is harming this franchise. Sonic Mania is a good game, yes, and Christian and his fellow men should be very proud of themselves. But Sonic Mania has one problem that many people are so blind to.
Denuvo?
This game succeeds as a great game because it is a complete solid project. However, what it lacks is the door for originality. It cheats its way into our hearts with nostalgia when it could have stood out on its own. It should have had more original zones than the 4 we just got. It should have stood out as a game of its own unique work, instead of heavily relying on reimagining stuff. I don't have a problem with some of the aspects of being recreated again, but if it lacks any passion towards the originality, it will only make us blind to the full potential of what a Sonic game could have become, and it will only damage the fan base more with the prejudice that Sonic was only good in the second dimension, when the 3D games have established that they can represent the heart of Sonic through more than just silent 2D gameplay. This is a great game, no doubt. But it should have been more than just rehashed zones and references so the classic fans can bitch and moan about their pride. Making Sonic Forces look bad, making games that represented Sonic, well, look bad. I don't blame Christian or the programmers for this, but my hope is that if there ever is a Sonic Mania sequel, they better embrace the originality and not just rely on nostalgia to cheat its way into a good game. Because no matter how much you justify Sonic Mania as a perfect game, you're only just blinding yourself from how much damage it causes the fan base, increasing the lack of vision, showing us only what we know rather than what we deserve, and that is the biggest problem of Sonic Mania.
Okay.
You have potential, Nitsa. The potential to become something greater, but you have so much to learn. When the time is right, you and I will save the fan base from being accused as a joke. People may see us as Rick and Morty fans, but I know our fan base has more passion than it realizes. You and I shall represent the true heart of who Sonic really is.
Do I have a choice?
But in due time, Nitsa. Until then, embrace your passion, open up the doors, raise your fan base. Because when the time comes, we're gonna change everything for the better.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened there, guys. Well, don't listen to him. He's just trying to, I'm Nitsa Gamer, and, I'm just gonna go join the Resistance.
It's time, Nitsa. It's time we change what is broken. So I'll take what's mine and start this war.
Win every day!